Vamos a reanudar la sesión y para ello tenemos con nosotras hoy aquí a Ece Temelkuran. Hola Ece, ¿cómo estás? Bueno, Ece...
Hi, I'm fine, thank you.
Tenéis todo el mundo los dispositivos de traducción, el que si a alguien se le ha olvidado están en la entrada. Y bueno, voy a presentar a Ece Temelkuran, que es una premiada novelista turca, pensadora y política y oradora pública, cuyo trabajo ha aparecido en medios como el New York Times, el Le Monde, The Guardian, Der Spiegel o La Stampa. Con sus novelas ha ganado, por ejemplo, el primer premio del Festival Internacional del Libro de Edimburgo, el premio Embajadores de la Nueva Europa, y es autora del internacionalmente aclamado Cómo perder un país, los 7 pasos que van de la democracia a la dictadura. Ensayo en el que relata los mecanismos por los cuales se ha ido perdiendo los derechos y las instituciones democráticas en la Turquía de Erdogan. Pues claramente, para un congreso como este, es algo que nos ha interesado especialmente. Sobre todo porque, además, los primeros pasos de esta pérdida de la democracia en su libro son discursivos. Y su último libro, Juntos, creo que también será interesante escuchar algo sobre él, porque, bueno, después de estas jornadas que hemos tenido, en las que hemos visto cómo todo está bastante mal, es curioso que ella, después de hacer su libro Cómo perder un país, escribe un libro que se llama Juntos, en el que realmente lo que muestra son muchísimas alternativas a esta militarización, ¿no?, de las democracias. Y además, esto lo ha acompañado de una web participativa que se llama Letters from Now, en la que también se busca recuperar esa humanidad que parece que estamos perdiendo. Este libro, Juntos, ha sido traducido a varias lenguas, incluido el castellano, y ha sido seleccionado recientemente como candidato al premio Tercera en Italia. Ece, que también fue becada en Oxford para escribir otro ensayo, Montaña profunda, atravesando la división entre Armenia y Turquía, tuvo que irse de Turquía en 2016, en un momento de que el golpe militar, que el intento de golpe militar, supuso un recrudecimiento de la persecución de personas como ella, que es una referente pública de oposición al régimen en Turquía, por lo que desde entonces ha vivido en Zagreb. Es además miembro de The New Institute en Hamburgo, donde trabaja en la elaboración colectiva de un nuevo vocabulario para los progresistas del siglo XXI. Una vez más, resaltar este afán de no quedarse solamente en describir lo mal que están las cosas, sino precisamente ella, habiendo sufrido en su propio cuerpo, en el sentido de tener que exiliarse, pues aprovecha para pasar de la descripción del estado de las cosas a la proposición, ¿no? Y bueno, también contribuye regularmente con la revista italiana Internazionale Magazine y con otros medios. Y bueno, no me quiero extender más, les dejo con su ponencia titulada Los pasos discursivos de la democracia a la dictadura. Adelante, Ece.
Thank you, Jorgen. And hello, everyone. I wish I was there in person. I'm right now in Hamburg, and of course, I would absolutely prefer to be in Madrid, as you can imagine. I want to thank you for organizing this, because this is such an important topic, militarization of political communication, and how right-wing populists, or new fascists, as I call them, dismantle and terrorize the language that we are using in political arena. I hope I won't take too much of your time, because probably you're going to have a delicious Spanish lunch. So I'll go through some, points rather than going into detail. When I was writing How to Lose a Country, I had almost 10 years, more than 10 years of experience of debating with the neo-fascists and right-wing populists. And as you know, speaking to them, with them, trying to understand them, or trying to make sense to them, feels like playing chess with a pigeon. The pigeon scatters the pieces of the chess, and then, he flies away proudly, not before shooting the chessboard first, of course. And then you stand there with all your knowledge of chess, and you think that, did I win? Did I lose? I think speaking with new fascists is like playing chess with pigeons. But also, most of the time, it feels like making milkshake without the lid on. So today, I'm going to actually talk about how to do that, how to make a milkshake without the lid on, and how to play chess with the pigeons. One of the chapters of How to Lose a Country, or in your language, Cómo, perder un país, is about dismantling the political discourse. And it's about how new fascists are terrorizing the political sphere. They are not in the debate to necessarily win the debate. They are there to terrorize the entire debate so that nothing can come out of it. I wrote this book, I started writing this book in 2016. That was a time when Trump came to power, when Boris Johnson came to the political scene, and where other right-wing populists in Europe and around Europe, in the United States, started appearing. So the debate, the topic has become already global. But there were, of course, those ones who thought that all this madness is first temporary, and it is specific to those countries that are not mature enough in their democracy, such as Italy, for instance, or Turkey. It took me some time to explain to them that this is a global phenomenon. And it was not before Trump came to power they realized, and in Britain especially, it wasn't before Brexit, they realized that something is happening to them, and it is all over the place. And when the Western countries started, realizing this something really weird is happening, their first response was to find a common ground with these people, such as, finding a common ground with Trump supporters, finding a common ground with Brexiteers, and so on. So a lot of time was spent on finding a common ground, and it very, very soon turned out to be a myth. There is no common ground when you're trying to, play chess with pigeons. What I try to do in the book and in the speeches I give is to go beyond the maddening part of the conversation, to go beyond the fact that they make us angry, they make us feel helpless, confused, puzzled, whatever. And I try to look into their logic, this logic of their discourse, how they are speaking, how they are putting arguments out there, and how do they react to our responses, or how do they basically dismantle the whole conversation. The topic of this conference is militarization of political communication. So if we pick up from there, what I did was to understand the weapon that they are using, the mechanics of that weapon, so to speak. I went through many debates that people like me had with the right-wing populists and the new fascists. And what I found out was 5 fundamental logical fallacies in their discourse. If you go through all these conversations, you can see an overarching theme, and you can see a shared logic. It doesn't matter which country. It can be United States, it can be Turkey, it can be Spain, whatever. But what they do was exactly the same. And I came up with these 5 fallacies of logic. What they do first is, if you tell it in Latin, 1, they do argumentum ad hominem. which is attacking the character of your adversary rather than attacking his or her argument. This is something they do a lot. You say something and then they forget about what you say, and they start talking about you and how you personally fail to fulfill your ideals and so on and so forth. So it is argumentum ad hominem first. Second, it's argumentum ad ignorantiam, which is appealing to the ignorance by asserting that a proposition is true because it's not disproven. When I say it like this, it sounds too complicated, but actually you run into this in every day when you talk to a anti-vaccine person or a person who believes that the world is flat. It gets to you because it is appealing to the ignorance of the masses. And the third failure in their logic is argumentum ad populum. True, this, it's simply to say that it is true because I said so. So it is a tautology, actually. And the fourth fallacy is reductio ad absurdum, jumping to an absurd conclusion or dragging the argument to an absurd extreme to show that the argument in itself is wrong. And the fifth thing they do is ad hoc reasoning. There is no reason. I just said it. And if I repeat it enough, it becomes true. Why did I say these things? Because normally in our normal lives, it doesn't have to be a political debate or anything. In our normal lives, we use a certain logic, like a basic, simple logic. You can call it Aristotelian logic, let's say. And they are actually attacking this logic by applying the schizophrenic logic with these fallacies, with these logical fallacies, and they make it impossible for us to communicate them. And what becomes at the end, imagine this as a public debate, for instance, what happens in the end, we look helpless and they look as if the winners of the debate. So this is something I guess we have to think about, because it is not only maddening, it doesn't only make us angry, but they are actually, with this schizophrenic logic, they are shaping the entire public debate. And then you find yourself playing their game if you do not understand the mechanics of their communication style. The other thing that I came to notice when I looked at their discourse and how we communicate with them is that when we get angry, when we cannot deal with this schizophrenic logic, so to speak, we start calling them children. We infantilize them. There are so many examples, especially for the new fascist leaders, in which they were called childlike. This was said for Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage in Britain, Trump as well, even for Erdogan, and for all the new fascist right-wing populist leaders. When we cannot deal with them, we turn them into children in our heads. And then we start seeing the masses as children who have been deceived by these childlike figures, so to speak. And this is something very common as well. We do not only call them or find them as children, but we also somehow think of them as broken children. We psychologize a political situation. I'm sure you have run into those articles or interviews done with psychiatrists in every country, trying to analyze Trump's persona or Erdogan's persona or whoever you like, Boris Johnson's persona. We do not only make them into children, but we also make them into broken children. And in their absentia, we are trying to psychologically diagnose them. This is, of course, a nice thing to do. You can try to understand, you can try to empathize, you can try to look deeper psychologically into the situation. But then actually, meanwhile, we forget that this is a political struggle rather than being us diagnosing a political figure. And then, the other interesting thing about this infantilization and seeing them as children is that somehow the world started acting like this infantilization of politics happened in 2016 when Trump came to power, happened in 2016 again in Britain when Brexit happened, and this and that, all those, most popular neo-fascists came to stage. My argument is that it actually started happening in 1980s. So this is a political matter as well. The infantilization of masses actually started in 1980s with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. And it was a political attack on the masses. They told us there is no alternative. This was the most popular motto of 1980s coming from Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. And that was the motto of unleashed neoliberalism. By saying there is no alternative, they meant this is the economy, we're going to run it, and the experts will run it, and you don't have to do anything, you don't have to know anything, and right now, we are going to separate politics from economy. And the economy will be dealt by adults who know about numbers, whereas politics is you going to the ballot boxes every 4 years and pretend like you're choosing something. Pretend like what your choices will determine anything. So, sorry, this decoupling of economy and politics gave the people a sense of we do not have agency. Well, it wasn't only a sense, it was actually a reality. They didn't have anymore any agency on how the riches of the world will be distributed. So politics was stripped of its core, importance, which is to decide about how to live and how to share the resources. Then on, politics became, gradually became a form of entertainment, so to speak. And we were the kids, we were the children, actually, in the eyes of the neoliberal ideology, to be dealt with, to be managed, while the adults of the system take care of the economy, the real estate. So I remember, because I'm old enough to remember, when the political discourse changed, the vocabulary of politics changed in 1980s. We weren't supposed to talk about class, social class. We weren't supposed to talk about ideologies because there were no ideologies anymore. We weren't supposed to know about politics, and the politics was dirty anyway. So all those words that we weren't allowed to use anymore were replaced with other words, such as vision, mission, innovation, motivation, and so on. So they made us believe that we are living in an apolitical sphere. They made us believe that we can actually wash our hands off of politics. And they made us feel like liberated from the burden of politics. And I think that infantilization of the masses, that, apoliticization process brought us to this point where the masses think that a person like Trump, a person like Boris Johnson, a person like Orban or Erdogan can save the masses with their so-called strongman personality. One of the other things that I find as a commonality between these leaders and between these new fascist political movements is they do the same thing in the very beginning. And if we can spot that, we can always understand, we can always, foresee something dangerous coming towards us. They always start by bypassing the media. They always humiliate the journalists first. They always attack the journalism first. And by doing that, they make the masses feel like I am, getting rid of these liars that are standing between me and my people. And I am offering you my authenticity, my genuineness. And they always start doing this by attacking the journalism itself. And, for a long time, the world started, tried to deal with this situation, with this kind of leaders, by fact-checking them, by holding them into account, and by, at the end, when they really felt helpless, they invited these leaders, or the spin doctors of these leaders, to shame, to common sense and to shame. They wanted to tell them, like, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Let's say groping women, or aren't you ashamed of yourself for telling all these lies? But then this communication toolkit does not work with this kind of political situation, with this kind of political movement. They are not ashamed. They do not have common sense. And even if you shame them, they don't feel the embarrassment that a normal people would when it is revealed that they are lying. So what can you do with a person who do not have the shame, the basic, simple shame when we feel, that we are telling lies? What do you do? How do you talk to a person who doesn't have the remorse, the sense of remorse? And that always reminds me of Albert Camus, because once he said that we all believed that if we can talk to a human in the language of humans, we are going to get human reaction. We are certain of that. But we came to a point, especially in our political communication, that we don't have that confidence anymore. We are not sure if we are going to get a human reaction if we speak in the language of humanity. So this is somewhere that desperation begins, actually, I think. It does, as I said before, it doesn't have to be new fascism only. This phenomena, this malice, or this terror of communication has spread to our social lives as well, as we saw it in, especially during the pandemic, during the debates of those people who believe that there is no pandemic and the vaccine is hoax and so on and so forth. So this is something almost beyond politics, this malice, this global phenomena. We are, as I said, we are in a point where we are not anymore sure that we can get a human reaction when we talk in the language of humanity. And I think this is the most important thing that happened to, to our kind, to political debate in general in the last decades. Because in 1954, when there were all type of fascists, such as McCarthy in the United States, when McCarthy's Senate hearings were happening, at some point, the witch hunt became so unbearable to everybody. So there was a guy in one of the hearings, towards the end of that Senate hearings, who said to McCarthy, "Have you not? Don't you have any decency, sir?" And then that question asked to McCarthy actually brought the end of that witch hunt. But we are living in a time where that question is not valid anymore. That question is inconsequential. If you ask to these leaders or their spin doctors in a debate, don't you have any decency? They would just smile at you. They would just do their grin, which is another universally used grin of new fascism, their sarcastic grin, as if they are beyond and above everything and we don't understand. We understand nothing. As Jorge said in the beginning, after writing How to Lose a Country, I wrote another book called Together, a Manifesto Against the Heartless World. How to Lose a Country was published in several languages, so I had to go around the world and talk to people about how new fascism is a global phenomenon and it's coming towards them and we have to take action and so on. I terrified people a lot. I was like the Cassandra, going around and telling people that, oh, it's coming towards you, don't feel safe, and so on. And each time I gave a speech, when I convinced the audiences enough that they are in danger as well, the question that came up almost in every event was, so where is hope? I heard the question of hope so many times, and I felt the need to think about hope. That is why actually I wrote the book Together, because I thought hope is a fragile word for our times, and it doesn't really do the trick. It is not hope that we lost, I think. It is the faith in our kind and in politics. That's what we have lost in the last few decades. Many of us who think that, talking to these people is like playing chess with pigeons and, making milkshake without the lid on and so on. And many of us are exhausted having these debates or feeling helpless, feeling alone, and so on and so forth. But then it is not the hope that is lost there. It is the faith in ourselves and in the others who are like ourselves. And if we can reinvigorate that faith in politics and in ourselves, I think that would change the things dramatically. So in Together, I tried to tell that maybe we should get the old words back to our political discourse in order to go beyond the polarization, in order to overcome this unceasing hostility in the political sphere, in order to overcome our desperation and exhaustion. I know that these words, such as faith, for instance, doesn't sound political. Of course, when you say faith, the first thing that people would think, I'm talking about religious matter. Although I think that faith is invented by humans because we need to believe. We have the need to believe. That's why we invented faith, and then we invented something else to believe in, such as God. So faith is a human skill that we can actually restart using in politics, because it was there once until the end of 1970s, and it was taken from us by many tentacles of neoliberal system. Because I don't think that people, especially in 1960s or 70s, when they were in the heat of the political action, they didn't ask each other or themselves whether there is hope or not, because they had faith in themselves and in others, and they had faith in political action. They had faith in politics, and they believed, they knew certainly that politics can change anything, political action can change anything. I think for understandable reasons, in the last 4 decades, we lost that faith in politics to start with. So reinvigorating that faith can only be possible by remembering something about ourselves. Today is Saturday, and probably weather is good in Madrid, and there are like hundreds of things that you could do, but you are here listening to me, listening to the other wonderful speakers that I'm very sad to miss. Why are you here? Like at the very bottom of your hearts, why are you here? We forget about the main reason of why we do things when we lose ourselves in the madness and the desperation of the situation. But if you ask me, you're here because you love humans, you believe in humans, you believe in politics, you still believe that we can change things, you still believe that we can reverse the course of this bloody history. So maybe, as they do in times of doubt in religious life, we have to go back to that why once again. And we have to think about human love and radical love. And we might want to bring that word, radical love, back to politics. When I say this, I feel like I sound as if I'm a self-help, TED speaker, whatever. It sounds so new age to some people I know. But when I talk about radical love, I talk about an extremely political subject. Let me give you an example. Turkey is a fucked up country, to say the least. It's not about Erdogan. It's not about the AKP, the governing party. It's not about the regime. After more than 20 years of having that man running the country, after all those 20 years of brutal oppression, even our personal lives are terrorized. Even our personal lives, intimate relations are dismantled. The entire moral code, shared moral code of a country is damaged. That is what fascism does to a country. It doesn't only, apply oppression. It just ruins the very fabric of a society and the individuals. Anyway, after all those 20 years of Erdogan regime, several municipalities in the last local election were won over by opposition party members. The big cities such as Istanbul, Ankara, Izmir, Mersin, and Adana, several others. And you know how they did that? Despite all the impossibility, they did that by radical love. They used radical love in their communication. They told the people without discriminating them, as in AKP supporters, Erdogan supporters, and the others. They told the people during their election campaign that they love them all. They will love them all. They will embrace them all. This sounds like a religious sermon to some people maybe, but then I've seen it work. That's why I'm talking about radical love. The only way for us to get out of this existential pit and to do politics again is to remember the radical love and how embracing all the people can change things. In real life, there are examples of this, but I would love you to think about it a little bit in an abstract way as well. I don't have the luxury of being naive, and I don't think anybody there listening right now is naive. So I know how difficult it is to mention love, especially when you're talking about politics, without a smirk, without a sarcastic smirk. It is not easy for me to talk about love because I have the fear of being perceived as naive. But then this also tells a lot about ourselves as well, I think. How we become cynical, how we become, doubting ourselves. So my suggestion, of course, this suggestion is a little bit more sophisticated than this in the book. So my suggestion is to think about radical love and to think of ways to apply radical love in our political discourse when we are trying to change the world and our countries. I was actually about to finish, and I was going to say that, we have to think about those, new words, which are actually very old words, such as dignity, faith, radical love, and so on and so forth. Because we need those words now for people to come together. And we have to inject those words to our politics, to our political discourse. Everybody is exhausted, not only us, but also, people who are not necessarily interested in politics. They feel exhausted, they feel helpless, they feel desperate. And we are somehow going through a certain political homelessness, if you will. Our exhaustion, our fears, our desperation, our confusion, our doubts do not have an accommodation in the current political sphere, not really. Many of us are not doing, party politics, let's say. We cannot find ourselves, we cannot find a place to connect our politics to. Many people have difficulties about that. So the only thing we can overcome these difficulties, I think, is to come up with a new vocabulary. And that vocabulary should be as embracing as possible, as, touching as possible. Otherwise, we're going to be sitting at that chessboard watching the pigeon fly away proudly after scattering the pieces and shitting on the chessboard. So this is all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Muchísimas gracias, Ece. Realmente me ha parecido un discurso brillante y emocionante. Abrimos un turno de preguntas. Aquí tenemos una y después otra. No sé si alguien puede pasar el micro. Bueno, voy yo, ya está. Sí.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi,
how are you? This is Herman Labrador. I am the director of public activities of the museum, and I just wanted to thank you for accepting our invitation and being here, at least somehow, today with us. For us, it's very important to have this possibility of a communication. We've been very touched by your job and experience, and we're sharing that also with you from a context in which the museum is being under attack, because also for cultural wars and so on. And today you received the nicest possible way of being trolled through kids, crazy kids doing funny things. So it's also, for me, it's interesting you being mentioning infantilization of the masses. So you got some nice kids doing, like soft trolling, but yesterday was through porno, so there are other possibilities. Yeah, so you got the best part. But talking, well, I just wanted to say you hello and thanks from the institutional perspective, and then as a citizen, my question would be talking about love and embracing the others from a digital world. It's difficult.
Right now, I'm seeing on my screen a ass of a very old man getting out of the toilet.
Okay, so maybe our dear trolls just got my message. Thank you, dear trolls. If you pay so much attention to us, I mean, thanks, because you just gave to our work the importance it deserves. Well, my question is, in that crazy digital world of people doing things, it's difficult how to get together in order to meet and to create the opportunity for this radical love you're proposing, and we believe we all somehow here try to share. So how can we do that from our experience of a fragmented, isolated, technologically, socially, culturally complex world? Thanks. I'm going to pass you the mic to another person, so maybe we collect some few questions and then you have.
Hello, hola, Ece. My name is Sara, and it's not a question. I just want to share a moment with you to thank you. I am very touched by your intervention, and it makes me think about many friends and collaborators that have left Turkey or that are still in Turkey, resisting and trying to work, to propose, to change, even if with minor changes, not at least the togetherness of still being there and how difficult it is. But also I think your speech here today brings to us many things, and that is why I wanted to thank you. In the middle of the desperation that you described, the idea of the radical love as the only possibility, I think, really give us all strength in these moments. I am also very sorry that we all, but especially you, have to see those images in your screen. But of course, humor is another really big weapon, and it's a space of care, and it's a space of revolt as well. So it's also nice to be laughing together about those kids. But in any case, I want to thank you for this notion of the radical love that I think also feminism has been always transforming the world and the possibility of thinking another way. But now more than ever, or for us more than ever, is really important. It's really useful. It's not naive. We really need to say it aloud. We really need to be together on that. And so thank you for your radical love. I send mine to you in this moment. Thank you so much, Ece.
Se puede preguntar en español porque tenemos traducción hacia ella también, ¿vale? Que para inglés o español las dos están bien. Vamos a recoger una palabra más.
Thank you so much for your truly awesome presentation. My name is Stefania and I'm Italian. So I have a question that pertains to my country, which, as you know, is in a situation which is marginally better than Turkey, but we have our own share of neo-fascists in power. My question has to do with the penetration of the fascist discourse and the turning into heroes of these politicians by the popular press. And I refer in specific to a recent episode. There is a female magazine, quite mainstream, but that prides itself to be sort of feminist. That originally, so at the beginning, when Meloni, the current prime minister, came into power, didn't report it, didn't cover it, didn't give her any space, received some letters of protest because she is a woman, so we have to like her, right, because we are feminists. And the last number of last issue, 2022, featured Meloni in the cover. She was hardly recognizable, she really looked like a Madonna, so this kind of, transfiguration of the neo-fascist into almost, like a pop icon. And she was named one of the 100 women of the year, but she was the star of the issue. I find this extremely problematic, and I wonder whether you have suggestions on how, as activists, we can resist this penetration of the neo-fascist discourse, or this normalization of the neo-fascist discourse, even in places that deem themselves to be different. Because it's very hard to resist, it's very creepy, it's sneaky, and it looks very innocent, it looks very hard to attack. So I wonder whether you have any practical suggestion. Thank you very much.
Adelante, Ece, cuando quieras. Ece, puedes, you can respond to the questions whenever you want.
I don't hear the question though, if it's not happening now.
Okay, so it was just comments. Okay. Voy a aprovechar para hacer yo un comentario también respecto a lo que has dicho, de que muchas veces hay como una media sonrisa cuando se habla de amor y es curioso, quizá esto tenga que ver con conocer poco la historia de los movimientos sociales y políticos, porque realmente a principios, durante el siglo XIX, el movimiento obrero y durante gran parte del siglo XX se basó principalmente, y España es un país especialmente importante en esto, en la solidaridad, en el apoyo mutuo, que es una expresión del amor, ¿no? Entonces, esto tuvo un impacto fenomenal en las sociedades y se consiguieron un montón de victorias. Y además me ha recordado que justo Comte, el fundador de la sociología, era positivista, hablaba de ciencia todo el rato, ¿no? y de cómo aplicar la ciencia a la sociedad. Esto es una cosa que se está recuperando poco a poco, de otra manera, pero es curioso porque él acabó escribiendo un libro que se llamaba La religión de la humanidad. Y la persona que más había criticado las religiones desde el punto de vista científico durante toda su vida acabó reconociendo la importancia que tiene esta fe, y en lugar de decir vamos a creer en un Dios todopoderoso, una especie de dictador de los cielos, vamos a enfocar esa fe en, como tú decías, en los demás y en uno mismo, en la humanidad, ¿no? Entonces, volviendo atrás a estos viejos conceptos, como comentabas, efectivamente surgen cosas que cuestionan este sentido común, según el cual hablar de amor o de solidaridad es simplemente algo naif. Entonces nos lleva a pensar, como decías, que eso es parte también de una derrota discursiva que podemos tener hoy en día, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, creo que más que preguntas, tu conferencia nos ha hecho pensar y bueno, muchas gracias. Si hay alguna otra comentario, pregunta. Claro, vale, no sé si tienes... sí, igual no me oíste antes cuando decía que si querías hacer alguna reacción a lo que han comentado los demás, adelante. Ahora no te oímos, un segundo.
Okay. I'll do a general thing. First of all, thank you so very much. I mean, it really feels awkward to be here because if I was there, this could have been a far more, because, you know, I kind of lost my faith in this kind of communication, like, you know, one person speaking on the stage and the other is listening and so on. This is 20th century. Now we're 21st century. Everybody's on stage. Everybody has a mic. And especially after Letters from Now, that project I did, I kind of believe in the other format that 21st century provided us with, this speaking as equals, like, you know, I'm not listening, you're not talking, but we are both listening and talking. Anyways, next time. Okay, let's start with this, trolls. First of all, I'm so happy that the trolls are so sweet today, because when there wasn't the word troll, when there wasn't the word social media harassment, I think one of the first people who have been attacked. And speaking of porn, I don't know how many porn accounts they opened in my name. So I have a special connection to trolls that use porn. And I was a concubine in a Saudi sheikh's palace. I was this extremely skillful matahari who worked all at the same time for English, for, you know, for German, for Iranian intelligence services. And there was one more thing they made out of me. Now I forgot. It's funny now, but it made me cry then, because I could, you know, when those attacks happen, especially when we didn't know what was it then, it feels like having a sword fight with the ghosts. You don't know who you're attacking, you know, who you are protecting yourself from. So yeah, that sword fight is the most maddening thing of social media harassment, I think. Anyways, and I thank all of you for your contributions. It's so nice to hear your voices. But let's start with let's start with this. First of all, we want to believe that there are practical solutions to our problems. No, there are no practical solutions. I mean, like, if we can fix this and that, like here and there, a few things, if we can do this better, or if we can be more people together, no, it won't happen like this. We need an idea first. We need a philosophical understanding of the reality, our reality. If we can understand it philosophically, then politics will trickle down, and our practical solutions will trickle down from politics. So we need the idea first. So what is the idea? My idea is that we lost faith in ourselves, and we lost, and also we, as Jorge said earlier, we forgot our history. And we started, without even knowing, we started believing in our history, which has been rewritten by the neoliberal narrative. And that narrative tells us, first, socialism is defeated, okay, whatever. Ideologies are no more. But most importantly, it tells our story back to us by only emphasizing the defeat. It constantly tells us that we are defeated, and I think we are buying that discourse. Okay, yes, we were defeated. What? So what? But before we were defeated, there was joy in that struggle. There was the joy of being together. There was the joy of believing in something together. There was even the joy of self-sacrifice. So why don't we start telling that part of the story, especially to the younger generation? It's not only defeat that's important. What is more important is what happened before the defeat. And are we defeated anyway? But that's another question. What I'm trying to tell is, maybe we are even influenced by the hegemonic narrative of neoliberalism that keeps us telling that our kind of people have no chance of winning. So what? I mean, like, let's not win. So what? That's why faith is important, because hope tells you, okay, if there is no hope, what are you going to do? Nothing. Yeah, expectation for hope, waiting for hope, or trying to see the hope turns us into passive ignorance, so to speak. We know our history. There is a lot of joy and the confidence of being on the right side, and the self, how shall I put it? The peace, the inner peace of being on the right side. The dignity, the joy of dignity is there as well. So maybe we should think about that. First, a philosophical idea, then this, are we really writing our history? Are we really remembering our history correctly, and all of it, every part of it, not only the defeat. And then if we can do this, I do believe that the practical solutions would follow. Penetration of fascist discourse to mainstream, and Meloni turning into pop icon, whitewashing Meloni's fascism. That is so interesting. Of course, it is not, easy when the fascist leader is a woman. It makes the problem a little bit more tricky. But then there's another chapter in Together, and I would love you to read it if you can at some point, because fascism has always misogyny as its wingman. There is no fascism in the history of humanity without misogyny. But then fascism is not against women or women's rights necessarily, or women power, but it is against the female. I think if you put it like this, it makes more sense. Because fascism is not only against women, being emancipated, but it is also it's the enemy of the X chromosome in the male body. It is against every softness. It's against every irregularity. It's against every color. So fascism is also against nature, which is also female. Fascism is against the female in the male body. Fascism is against the female, the irregular, the colorful in life. So if you look at it like this, Meloni can be a woman, but at the same, she might not be female. In that sense, in the sense that I just described. So what we have to do, maybe, to remind people as much as we can that there is female and there is woman, and these are two different things, especially in Meloni's case. But then in any other case, when the fascist leader is not a woman, we have to believe in truth as well. We have to have faith in truth. Because when you have faith is such a magical skill of humankind. Because it is a decision. It is not related to the narrow reality that we are living in. It's a decision we make. We decide to believe in something, and then, it's a conviction, and we follow our convictions. I think this is what we need in politics today. Not hope, but this conviction. We are right, we are going to win, and even if we are not win, we are on the right side. And by the way, this side of the whole thing is full of better people. So I have to be on this side anyway, whatever happens at the end. That kind of faith, that kind of stubbornness, that kind of determination, not giving up. It's like, even if I, lose, I lose, but I lose with dignity, kind of. How can we come together? Let's finish something about laughing. I remembered something about laughing as well when Sarah was speaking, I think. Walter Benjamin, one of my favorite writers and philosophers, once said that laughing is the best trigger for thought. So we shouldn't forget to laugh, that's for sure. But then we also have to be aware how we are laughing, with whom we are laughing, and at what we are laughing. When there is no political action on the street, on social media, I see people like us attacking each other with a certain sarcasm. And I think it comes from the sense of defeat. Sometimes we are like locked up in a castle that is under siege. So sometimes we suffer from intellectual, emotional, psychological famine, as people would do in a castle under siege. So that sarcasm we see everywhere in the communication sphere somehow contaminates our own inner communication as well, and we become a little bit too merciless to each other, you know, among leftists, among progressives. So maybe we start laughing at each other, as in a mocking way, as in a sarcastic way. Maybe we should be careful about how we laugh, with whom we laugh, and what we laugh at as well. And last but not the least, how do we come together? You know, I just bought a t-shirt saying there's a black cat on it, and it says, I drink coffee, I know things, I don't like people. And it's a good, I'm like, yeah, sometimes I don't like people as well. Humans are so exhausting. They can be incredibly stupid. They are maddening with their self-assured ignorance and so on. But then humanity is something else. It is not necessarily individuals we need to believe. It is that humanity, this idealistic thing, which sometimes feels so far away from reality, I know. But then this is why deciding to believe is important, because only if we decide to believe, we can overcome the exhaustion that humans individually give us. Before finishing, there's a film I would love you to watch. It's called The Wonder. It's an English nurse. This is right after First World War, the story. An English nurse goes to an Irish village, and there's a girl there whom the entire village believes that she is surviving without food for the last 4 months. So she is perceived as the religious miracle. I'm not going to tell you about the movie, but the movie tells something very important. The English nurse is trying to rescue the girl from the ignorant peasants, that, religious peasants, that those people who are so deeply buried in their own view of the world. You can think them as vaccine, mad vaccine people. Or you can think them as flat earthers. You can think them as the masses that follow the fascist leader. And then finally, the nurse notices that if she can tell the story in their terms, they can have the meaning, they can understand the meaning, they can understand the good intention of the nurse. I don't say that we have to put our meaning into their sentences. I don't believe in doing that either. But I do believe that there are still words such as dignity, such as love, such as faith, that can touch the human heart. of course, as you know, as I said earlier, as Camus said once, there are instances in history where that confidence of getting a human response, if you speak in human language, is lost. But then it is only our faith that can revive that confidence. And that confidence should not be damaged by our narrow realities. That's it. Thank you.